Off the coast of San Francisco in December 2005, a crab fisherman spotted something wrong in the water, 18 miles out past the Farallone Islands. A humpback whale, 50 feet long, was tangled in rope from her mouth to her tail, dragging 12 crab traps behind her, each one 90 pounds, pulling her downward every time she tried to rise for air. She had been fighting for hours just to keep her blowhole above the surface. When the rescue divers finally reached her, they carried curved knives and understood something simple before they ever touched the water. One reflexive movement from that tail could kill any of them in seconds, without the whale meaning it at all. She stopped moving the instant they entered the water. For over an hour, she held herself at the surface, while 4 strangers worked across her body with blades, and at several points she rotated her own fin, adjusted her own angle, in ways that made their job easier. A 50-ton animal chose stillness, while people she had never met cut the ropes wrapped around her. The easy version of this story is that she knew they were helping. The science is less comfortable than that. Every wild animal runs a threat assessment system that never switches off, even while it sleeps, even while it eats. It tracks speed, distance, the angle something is approaching from, and it reaches a verdict faster than the animal could ever consciously decide on one. In most encounters with a human, the verdict is the same: leave. Researchers have found this same response in animals that have never personally encountered a person in their life, born in zoos, raised without ever seeing one, which means none of this is learned. It is closer to instinct passed down through the species itself, older than any individual animal carrying it. Being trapped pushes that system somewhere most human bodies never have to go. A 2018 study in the European Journal of Wildlife Research measured cortisol in wild deer caught in fences and found stress hormone levels higher than in deer wounded by gunfire. Not comparable to a gunshot wound, higher. The body is burning through every resource it has at once, heart rate climbing, muscles locking rigid rather than simply tense, preparing for an ending it cannot control. It would be reasonable to assume that once a human starts cutting the ropes or opening a trap, the animal's body registers relief, that the threat system recognizes the difference between a predator and someone trying to help. It mostly doesn't. A predator closing in moves fast and directly. With intent, the prey's nervous system has been calibrated to recognize across millions of years. A human untangling a snare moves slowly, often without looking the animal in the eye, making none of the sounds that belong in a threat. The alarm system searches its entire catalogue of danger signals and comes back with nothing that matches. The animal isn't relieved. It's confused in a way evolution never prepared it to be. That confusion has a visible shape. Field veterinarians and wildlife rehabilitators describe a specific moment when a trapped animal's rigid, locked muscles soften, not from exhaustion, but from something closer to the system simply running out of instructions to follow. Pupils that were fully dilated relax slightly. Breathing that was fast and shallow slows down by degrees. The thrashing was the only response the body had ready for a predator. When the threat refuses to behave like one, that response has nowhere left to go, and the animal is left holding a state its biology was never asked to sustain past the moment of capture. This is likely what was happening underneath the whale's stillness off San Francisco. But staying still during a rescue is the easier half of this mystery. What some animals do once they're free is the half researchers still. The whale didn't dive and vanish, which is what a 50-ton wild animal owes no one an explanation for failing to do. Instead, she circled the divers, then surfaced beside each one individually, nudging them with the tip of her jaw before moving to the next. One of the divers later described it, carefully, as something close to gratitude. Elephants show something similar on land. An elephant's trunk carries close to 40,000 individual muscles and a density of nerve endings comparable to a human fingertip. So when an elephant touches something on purpose, it reads more like an examination than a gesture. Researchers working in elephant rescue have documented juveniles pulled from mud pits, reaching out afterward, trunk against the arm or hand of the person who freed them, holding that contact for several seconds before finally walking away, sometimes returning to do it a second time before leaving for good. Elephants also mourn, recognize their own reflection in a mirror, and carry memories of specific individuals across decades, returning years later to the bones of companions that died long before. Whatever is happening when that trunk lingers a little too long, it isn't happening inside a mind that lacks the equipment to tell one human from another. Here is the part that resists a clean explanation. A suspended threat response accounts for the stillness during the rescue itself. It does not obviously account for what comes after. The threat is gone, the animal is free, and there is no remaining biological reason to stay near the species that, minutes earlier, its entire nervous system identified as the most dangerous predator alive. And yet some of them do exactly that. Not fleeing, not foraging, simply present, for a length of time that danger alone cannot explain, before eventually moving on. Maybe what these animals are running is something close to recognition with no story behind it at all. A body registering that an expected outcome failed to arrive and lingering in that gap slightly longer than it needed to, the way a held breath continues a beat after the danger has actually passed. Or maybe something closer to what the diver called it is actually happening, somewhere underneath the biology, and we simply don't have instruments good enough yet to prove it either way. It's worth asking why this particular mystery pulls at people the way it does, year after year, story after story. Maybe it's because we're pattern-recognizing animals ourselves, built to search every encounter for a mind looking back at us, and a 50-ton creature choosing stillness under our hands is exactly the kind of pattern we were built to find meaning in. We want the gap to mean something, the same way the diver wanted a word for what he felt that afternoon, even knowing the scientists in the room would ask him to be careful with it. Whether that meaning is really there, or whether we're just looking at our own reflection in very deep water, is a question the whale was never going to answer for us. She was free to leave the moment the last rope hit the water. She chose, for reasons no one can prove, to come back to every person who freed her first.